Let's talk about running backs that you need to be starting in week 6 of fantasy football. As always, we're going to break this up into 3 categories: your smash starts, your solid starts, and your high risk, high reward starts. 9 total players. The guys on the screen right now are all obvious must starts. Make sure they are locked into your lineup. Let's start with the high risk, high reward section. First man up is Kimani Vidal. Hopefully you woke up this morning and Vidal was sitting at the bottom of your bench, because I think he's going to be the back to own in LA. Yes, I know Hassan Haskins played under coach Jim Harbaugh back in Michigan, but I don't really think that matters. Here's the reality of the situation. The Chargers were already an extremely pass-heavy offense before Hampton went down. As they ranked first in pass rate over expected, now with their RB1 out, you can expect LA to throw the football even more. And that's going to favor Vidal, who is going to be their pass down back. He's going to get a lot of work. He's also the more efficient, explosive player compared to Haskins, who's more of this plotter back, boring back, who's probably going to get the goal line carries. He's probably going to fall into the end zone a couple times, but he's not going to catch passes. That's the important thing here. And on top of that, Vidal also has more to his game than just receiving upside. He's a back who can get it done on the ground just as well, if not better than Haskins can. And yeah, we know the Chargers added Nyheim Hines to their practice squad. I think that's probably the best case scenario though for these 2 running backs already on the roster, because Hines is an older player. I don't think he's that good. He's never been this high volume back either. So I'm not expecting him to do much of anything, especially this week. He might not even be active. So if you are in a pinch, if you had Hampton on your roster, you need a guy to plug into your lineup. I have no problem if you want to get Vidal, let's say, into your flex spot or into your RB2 spot if you're in a really bad situation, because the matchup is really good against the Miami Dolphins, who have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to running backs this season. Could it be a messy backfield in week 6? Could it be really confusing? Could neither back do anything? Absolutely. That's why Vidal is in the high risk, high reward category. But if I had to bet on one of these backs making an immediate impact, give me the guy who's going to see the pass down work on a very pass heavy Chargers offense. All right, moving on to our next guy, Travion Henderson. I may sound like a broken record at this point, but I still do have faith in the rookie running back. Even if all the underlying data, the advanced metrics say otherwise, it's not great right now. It really isn't. 27th in explosive run rate, 34th in yards after contact, 36th in missed tackles forced. Like, it hasn't been good, but we know he's still a young player who's going to get better every single week. We know what Henderson is capable of. We know the talent that he has. And if it all clicks at once, he could put up a monster game at any point. While it's going to be hard to predict, like I said, I still do have faith, especially with this backfield being more condensed now. Unfortunately, Antonio Gibson done for the year, torn ACL. So it's really just Stevenson and Henderson that are going to receive work going forward. And Stevenson continues to fumble the football. He's lost 3 fumbles already this year. And it's like no one on this coaching staff in New England cares. They just continue to feed Stevenson. They continue to praise him. Like, it's a super odd situation. But one has to think that Ramondre is on very thin ice. And even with Henderson struggling a little bit right now, considering he is the RB2 on this roster, he's going to have more opportunities going forward. I do think he's playable this week in your flex. Another guy, if you're desperate, I do still like his upside. We know 2 teams are on bye this week. Like, you could do a lot worse than starting Travion, because I firmly believe sooner rather than later, Henderson is going to have one of those blow up performances, and you're going to either want him on your bench, want him on your team, or in your starting lineup, because I just don't think Stevenson is a very good back. I think Henderson still is the better player. I think once he figures it out, it's not going to be close. So keep your faith in the rookie. And this could be a get right spot in week 6 against the Saints, who are allowing 4.2 yards per carry and 23.8 PPR fantasy points per game to running back. So I know it's been frustrating, but if you are desperate, if you are in need of a flex, I think Henderson is very playable this week. All right, moving on to our next guy, Chase Brown. If you are a Brown owner, it's been a very depressing start to the year. I do firmly believe, though, if Joe Burrow would have never gotten injured, Brown would have been an RB1 in fantasy, similar to what we saw from him last year. It's super unfortunate, but we got a little glimmer of hope, potentially. We know the Bengals just traded for quarterback Joe Flacco from the Browns, which it's something. We'll take it. This offense needs a change. Anything. We know Flacco, older player, hasn't looked great so far this year when he was starting with the Browns. He's not very mobile. He's 40 years old, but he's going to be able to run a more efficient offense than Browning did. Like, it can't get much worse Flacco is still a good quarterback. He still has experience. He still knows how to operate an offense, something Browning could not do. Flacco's going to make the smart throws, hit the open receivers, get the ball out quick. He should be able to move the football better than Browning could, and he loves to check it down to the running back, as he averaged 8.5 targets per game to the running back position in 4 games already with the Browns this year. But we know the obvious, most glaring issue in Cincinnati is the offensive line, which I just don't understand. They have a lot of talent, a lot of high draft capital on this offensive line. They have 2 ginormous human beings on both sides of the line that are like 6'8". Like, how can you not block for longer than 3 seconds? Like, every single week, I'm like, when are they going to figure this out? These guys are huge. Like I said, there's talent on this offensive line. How are they not improving? How are they not getting better? Like, it's just, I don't get it. You are in the NFL. Make a change. Fire the offensive line coach. Like, do something to fix this offensive line, because I do think they have enough guys in that unit that can get it done. And I do believe they can do better than what we've seen so far. Like, it can't get much worse at this point. But the concern is that Joe is just going to get absolutely crushed behind this line. Or maybe he does surprise us and is able to get the football out extremely fast. But that is my biggest concern. Either way, I do think with Flacco coming in, the arrow is pointing up for Brown, and his schedule does get easier the second half of the year. He's coming off an 8-target, 7-reception game. Like, you could do worse. It's really hard to bench Brown, obviously, when you spent high draft capital on him. Or frankly, it's been pretty easy because he's been so bad. But I think he's going to be hitting starting lineups soon, and you could put him in your flex if you want this week. I know it's a tough matchup against the Green Bay Packers coming off a bye, but they proved in week 4 that they're human. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys ran up and down the football field with no CeeDee Lamb. Like, maybe there is hope. Brown, you just pray that he continues to be a PPR machine, similar to what we saw last week, and just get this man in space. Like, the design of this offense has also been worrisome, but these are things that can be fixed. So I'm really hoping that Chase Brown has one of those really strong performances, hopefully this week. If it's not this week, it is coming. But I don't have a problem if you want to throw him in your flex and just hope for the best. But like I said, I think better days are ahead. All right, let's move on to the solid starts category of this video. First man up is Rachaaaad White, who, if you started him last week, he really came through for you in his first game without Bucky Irving, and he saw a workhorse role. Sean Tucker was not involved at all. Rachaaaad White saw 81% of the snaps, 72% of the rush attempts, all the short yardage work, found the end zone twice. He did have 14 carries for 41 yards. You don't love that, but we've never expected efficiency on the ground from White. It's always been his touchdown upside and his receiving chops, which 4 receptions for 40 yards in this one. You'll take that. 23.1 fantasy points, RB7 on the week. This is pretty simple here. Bucky Irving dealing with not only a foot sprain, but a partial shoulder dislocation. Like, he's not playing this week. Unfortunately, if you are a Bucky owner, hopefully you had the White handcuff, because I think he could be out for an extended period of time. But as long as Irving is out, I think Rachaaaad White is going to continue to ball. He gets the luxury of being on a really good Tampa Bay offense. Baker Mayfield continues to play at a really high level. Emeka Egbuka is also playing out of his mind. So this offense can move the football against whoever they want, and they're in scoring position a lot. You saw last week, Rachaaaad White capitalizing on 2 touchdowns. And I think he stays hot this week against the San Francisco 49ers defense, who this Bucs offense should have no problem moving the football on. So if you got him off the waiver wire somehow, or if you drafted him, kudos to you, because I think Rachaaaad White is going to be very usable, very good for fantasy for the foreseeable future. All right, next guy up is Kenneth Walker. This is another guy where it's been terribly frustrating to have him on your team this year. Like, it's been brutal. 1 week Walker finishes as an RB1, and then the next he scores outside the top 24 at the position. Like, it's just been very inconsistent, and none of it is really Kenneth's fault at all. It's just been the involvement of Zach Charbonnet, who continues to vulture away touchdowns. Like, Kenneth will do all the work to get down to the red zone, and then Charbonnet will come trotting in and he'll steal the touchdown from Walker. It's just been really brutal. We know who the better, more talented, more explosive player at this point is. It's Walker, but the coaching staff loves Charbonnet, and they don't seem to care. They just don't. They know that Charbonnet is not very efficient. They continue to put him in there. The only thing that I can think is that Seattle is doing what's best for Walker and not giving him a ton of work so he stays healthy for a full season. But if that's not the case, then Kenneth deserves a larger role on this offense. Here's what I'll say. I do think bigger, better days are coming from Walker, as he's been playing really good football right now, averaging 6.48 yards per carry over his last 3 games, along with 10.5 yards per target, 3rd in explosive run rate, 9th in missed tackles forced per attempt. And we know Walker can score from anywhere on the football field. He needs to start scoring from 60 yards out so he doesn't have to deal with this getting pulled in the red zone stuff. Keep starting Kenneth. I know it hasn't been great, but he does get the benefit from also being on a really good offense, similar to Rachaad White. Seahawks are cooking on offense right now, led by Sam Darnold. JSN is playing like one of the best receivers in football. I do think that KW9 breaks his touchdown drought, I believe, of 2 games. And I do think he has a monster game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who you can run the football on. So it's been brutal, but don't bench him now. Continue to start him and expect a big performance this week. All right, moving on to our next guy, J.K. Dobbins has been one of the more consistent backs in fantasy. Who would have thought? Like, Dobbins, good for him. Like, he looks really good. He scored at least 14.8 fantasy points in every game so far this year. And just when we all thought RJ Harvey was going to take over, last week it was kind of looking like it was trending in that direction. Sean Payton said, nope, slam the door, shut on the rookie in week 5 as Harvey saw his lowest snap share of the season. Super weird considering RJ looked really good, was coming off his best game of his career. Like, I don't really understand that, but we know Sean Payton is going to do what Sean Payton wants to do, as Harvey was out-carried by Dobbins last week, 20-4. So it appears it's going to be the JK show until further notice, and I get it. I mean, he looks great. He ranks 5th in the NFL in rushing yards at 402 yards, 4th in explosive run rate, and gets a great matchup in week 5 against the New York Jets, who are allowing the 7th most fantasy points to running backs. So yeah, continue to fire up Dobbins until the wheels fall off. Hopefully JK can stay healthy for an entire season. Hopefully he can look this good for an entire season. That's always a concern. Like, I do assume that at some point Harvey's going to carve out a bigger role for himself, but as of right now, that's not happening. So if you have Dobbins, you feel really good about it, lock him into your lineup and expect 15 plus fantasy points yet again in week 6. All right, moving on to the last category of the video, your smash start running backs, starting with Rico Dowdle, who, if you started him last week, you probably won your matchup because he went off. He was in the honorable mention section of our start video last week. That drops every Saturday at 9 a.m. Central Time. Just a little plug there. Tune in for that. But yeah, he likely won you your matchup. I mean, he went absolutely bonkers. No one could have predicted for him to have this good of a game. But we knew the matchup was good. We knew he was going to get all the work with Chuba Hubbard out. But 23 attempts for 206 rushing yards, a touchdown, and 169 of those yards came after contact, 10 missed tackles forced, 3 receptions, 28 yards, 32.4 fantasy points. And there's a real good chance that Chuba Hubbard is going to miss again this week as he's dealing with a calf strain. We know calf injuries tend to linger. They don't heal quickly. And even if Hubbard does return, like, Dowdle absolutely earned a bigger role on this offense, and he looked like the better running back of the two. Like, Chuba has not been very good this year. Dowdle could take over this backfield. Maybe that's not super likely as they just paid Chuba, but I think he earned a massive role going forward in this offense. And if he's the main man in the backfield, if Hubbard is out, then he's going to go crazy again because he has a revenge game in week 6 against his former team, the Dallas Cowboys, who can't stop anyone for the most part on the ground, as they've allowed the 8th most fantasy points per game to running backs this season. So congrats to you if you somehow had Dowdle on your roster, or if you were able to pick him up, if you put a waiver claim in for him. He won you your week, and he might continue to do so until Hubbard returns. All right, moving on to our next guy, another running back who's just playing absolutely lights out right now, and it's Quinshon Judkins, who you could say he's must start at this point, right? Like, he's looking like an RB1 in fantasy the rest of the way, especially with Dylan Gabriel. We know took over as the quarterback 1 for the Browns, and he looked really good in his first NFL start. I think that's going to only elevate this overall Browns offense that has not been very good under Joe Flacco. And if they're able to move the football, like, Judkins could finish top 5 at the position, because if they can get into the red zone, he's going to get a lot of touchdowns. But we know Quinshon can score from anywhere on the football field, and he showed us that in week 5, as he should have had a 56-yard touchdown that was taken off the board because of a holding penalty. Maybe it was ticky-tacky, maybe it wasn't. But regardless, he showed us that he has that breakaway speed that a lot of people didn't think he had in his tool bag. Like, this is a really impressive rookie who's only played 4 games. And in week 5, 23 attempts, 110 yards, chipped in 2 receptions for 18 yards, which you like to see. If he continues to get some receiving work, like, he is going to be a beast in fantasy. 13.8 fantasy points. And through his first 4 games, he has more rushing yards than Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson, and Josh Jacobs. And ranks 4th in yards after contact and 18th in explosive run rate. He's been extremely impressive considering he's still on one of the worst offenses in football. It hasn't mattered. If they're trailing, if they're down, they continue to feed Judkins. He is going to be a machine for the rest of the year. If you can get him on your roster now, I would be buying high. And if he's on your team, you are in a really good spot for the remainder of the year. And Quinshon should ball out again in week 6 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who just haven't been a great run defense this year, as they're allowing 122 rushing yards per game. So if you have Quinshon, you feel really good about it. He is going to continue to perform at a really high level, and I think he could maybe win you your week 6 in this matchup that I think he probably runs all over the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, and the last guy up on this list is Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Bill takeover season, and you better get on the hype train now or be left in the dust, because this is going to be a breakout running back this year. Like, he kind of already broke out in week 5. I think he is a really good player, and I think he could be an RB1, top 12 at the position for the remainder of the season. That's how excited I am about Bill. And last week, he had 14 carries for over 100 yards, found the end zone twice, chipped in 2 receptions for 39 yards, 27 fantasy points. He saw a season-high 50% snap share, 50%. And this is what he's doing. Like, if you watch the tape, if you watch the highlights, this is a really good player. He just runs different than most running backs. Like, you can tell the talent that he has, and the Commanders would be dumb to not put him on the field more. And I think his role is only going to continue to grow as he ranks 1st in yards per attempt, 1st in PFF rush grade, 2nd in yards after contact, 2nd in yards before contact, 2nd in 10+ yard attempts. Like, the Commanders need to get JCM on the field more. It just couldn't be more obvious that he is the best back on this roster. He is why they traded away Brian Robinson Jr., and they've kind of eased him into action, but it's time to fully unleash Bill. I think he's going to be a league winner. I know people don't like the word league winner, but he's the guy that you drafted late in fantasy that could very well finish top 12 at the position. I think he's going to have a massive year. I would be buying high before he goes off again on Monday Night Football against a horrible Bears run defense that just gave up 3 touchdowns to Ashton Genty before their bye week and ranked bottom 3 in fantasy points allowed to the running back position. So yeah, Bill last week was far from a fluke. He's only going to build on that performance in week 6. And once he goes off again on Monday Night Football, it's going to be really hard to get him on your roster. And if he's on your team, start him with confidence, be really excited about it, and watch this man go off yet again. That's all I have for you guys today. I really appreciate each and every one of you guys so much. Thank you for watching this entire video. If you enjoy what we're doing here and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Leave a like, comment down below, share this video with your friends and family. Thank you again. You guys are seriously the best, and I'll see you in the next one.